No, you can just skip.
I was going to say there's an interview that I did, one of my favorite interviews, and one of the questions at the end, they were like, it was like a fire question, and it was like, what's on your screensaver right now? And I was really proud of what was on my screensaver, but my phone was off. So I had to be like, wait a
Sing.
second, I just turned it on.
Is it the one you said, I am on vocal rest?
Yes, shut up. How do you know that? Shut up. How do you know? That's so scary. Literally, this guy's Nadwa. That is so random. How do you know that? I'm done. It's a wrap. Let's just...
Roger, tuko on?
Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel.
Tatumia hiyo ka intro.
I'm introducing. No, I can't do that.
As you can see, this is actually happening. You can see the title. Maybe you know this face. You've had Sanaa kwa Sanaa, myself, Sanaa mentioning her name kwa hii channel 1,000,000+1 times. We've mentioned her name kwa our top lists of EPs of 2022, hip-hop projects of 2022, and finally, it is happening. I am beyond ecstatic that this is a reality. We had Michelle Gatuiko here in January, and then now we have Elsy Wameyo. I am super, super excited that we are about to have this conversation with the one and only, the Nilotic here with us.
Yes, sir.
Jitambulishe to the people.
Hi. I feel like you've already given me the whole intro, but hi, I'm Elsy Wameyo, and I'm so excited to be here. I don't think you understand. I feel like even just the the connection of how I like met you was so divine, and I think that gave me more of a just like joy to even sit, because it was just so spontaneous. I never would have
Very
thought that we would
spontaneous.
have like physically met, to be honest, but here we are.
Very spontaneous. I was very surprised that it happened.
Yeah, likewise.
And here we are with Elsy Wameyo. And this is the reason we are here.
The fact that he has this is wild to me.
As you can see,
So wild.
this is the reason we are here.
That's so crazy to me. Ooh.
Why?
Do you know the thing is, I remember when I was making the vinyl, it was when I was releasing, and I posted on my like story, and I think it was Olango or someone that like messaged me and was like, wow, like you have a vinyl, like, and I was like, what do you mean? But in Australia, it's such a big thing. So it was just like, you don't have a vinyl? And he was telling me how in Kenya, it's not a big thing anymore. So you having a vinyl just speaks so loud, because I heard that not many people have vinyls out here, unless I'm wrong.
You have more reasons to be scared of who I am and what I am capable of doing. So we are here with the Nilotic G.
Yes,
na
sir.
ini project yake, debut EP yake, Nilotic, iliyotoka on 1st April of 2022. And today, at the time of this recording, it is 1st April 2023, exactly 1 year since its release.
That's crazy.
How are you feeling?
Happier than ever. You know, I think it's the EP itself was such a journey for me. Before I landed to what Nilotic is and what it was, I had gone through many years of trying to figure it out. And so I think even just saying that we're 1 year out after the release is so insane. Like, I can't even fathom that. But honestly, I just feel so blessed that I was able to create that and release that.
So to whoever is watching or listening and they do not know about your background, you could give them that, and then we delve deeper, because it's an integral part of
Who am I?
the story behind your project.
Just me?
Just you and your background.
Damn. I think I like to think of myself as just a creator, full stop. I love to create. I am always reminded by my family, my dad is a very, they never say the word, but they say this. He's someone that's very good with his hands. He can build, he can, like anything, he can just do it. And I think I picked that up. And so growing up, I've always been that person that just loves to create. I love to DIY. I love to feel and touch. I was saying to you earlier, I hate not knowing. And I think that's why I thrive creatively, because I love to mix and to match. But yeah, I mean, at the bottom of it all, I am a musician. I'm an artist. I make music for a living, and I just love to inspire. And I just go by a motto that says singing to inspire the living, and that's probably like the most basic way I could explain myself as.
Is your another Nadwa moment possibly your dad an electrician?
He is. Do you know what the thing is? I was told a few weeks ago that he's a mechanical engineer.
Okay.
Which in the like engineering world, if you call a mechanical engineer an electrician, it's like, so like all my life, all these interviews, my dad's an electrician. And then I remember this one time he just called me and he was like, I'm a mechanical engineer. And he was so disappointed. But ever since I like learnt that, I have to correct myself. So my father is actually a mechanical engineer. He's a very wise man, and yeah, he does that whole thing. So yeah.
And you could also tell us, Vile, he's the reason you moved, and how that is also part of who.
That's scary. I feel like he could have this interview without me here and just tell you. But no, yeah, so my father, I was born in Kenya, I was born here in Nairobi, and my father was, I guess he moved to Australia for work, and that caused the whole family to relocate. And I guess the music side of things, he's a lover of music. He loves music more than I do, and I love music. So it's kind of scary, to be honest. But he was the reason why I started to, I think, just enjoy music and appreciate it. And once he saw that I also had that love, he took me to our local studio where I was living. And I remember going there not having any intention of even like singing. So I would sit there and just watch whoever was there. And at the time I was watching TK Maidza, who is now TK Maidza. And I just saw her, you know, her journey and how she came up. And once she blossomed and kind of left, there was now that little gap which I just kind of fell into. And there not being many female artists, it was very easy for me to fill that gap. So then I started just making music, and my dad would just take me after school, you know, drop me to the studio and just leave me for hours and come pick me up in the evening. And I would just... experiment, be around people that are doing the thing, you know, producers, artists, photographers, and everything in between. And I think I was just surrounded by a lot of people who saw a spark in my eye that I couldn't necessarily see at that time. And they saw something very special, and they nurtured me. I think that's really who and what made Elsy Wameyo Northern Sound System.
I don't think you've told them where you went to.
I don't know if I want to tell them. I live somewhere on this planet. It's stupid because you can just Google it. I live in Adelaide, Australia. I live in South Australia.
So at the time when you were getting into music, what were you listening to, and what were those kind of influences around you?
Wow. So again, my dad played a really big role in what I was listening to growing up. I listened to Lingala and just Congolese music and just that world. I forget what it's called, like the Law version of Lingala. I think there's a...
Benga?
Is it Benga? Maybe let's say Rumba.
Because if you're talking about Central Africa and that region,
right,
then that would be Rumba.
You're
talking about Rumba. The Luo region, that would be Benga.
Right, okay. Let's just... all of it.
Central India and Eastern Africa.
Let's just all of it. I mean, it's... Okay, so it's like the TPK or jazz. It's the Francos. It's, you know... and then obviously your Kofis and your Fali. And yeah, so I was listening to a lot of that world. And then now moving to Australia, I started listening to the likes of Adele, obviously the Rihannas and the Beyoncés. And yeah, I think I gravitated a lot towards soul or just music that made my heart feel a type of way. Because I feel like when you listen to stuff like, let's say, hip hop, I feel like a lot of it, it's not here. There's definitely like a really, like, you can't, how do I explain it? Have you ever heard a song and you just want to cry? Or is that just a me thing? Is it just a me thing?
I am emotionless.
Okay. I think Lingala and just that world of like Congolese music, it touches me in here like no other music does. And not to say that like the other genres I don't love, I do, but I think there's a very unique and specific way that Lingala feeds my soul. But weirdly enough, that never reciprocated into what I was making as an artist. So I think it was more so just like what I just enjoyed to listen to, really. But I think it was now the Adeles and the Rihannas that started shaping now who I was. I was listening to the likes of Lil Wayne, like the YMCMB crew, like the Nicki Minaj and all of that. Now that was like my brother's influence. And I like to say that I was a rapper before I was a singer, to be honest, because of that. Like we would listen to Busta Rhymes on Look at Me Now, and it would just be the competition of like who can rap it the best, because so yeah, I think it was those influences I think that started to shape who I was as an artist, to be honest. Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a soul artist
Yes.
at the moment?
Yeah. I think the world just doesn't see it. But yeah.
Why so?
Because when I started making music, it's the industry is I love the industry, but I don't even love I hate the industry. I can't lie to you. I hate the industry because it pushes artists to a very specific direction. And I think if you're not headstrong, you can become very easily swayed. And I remember, so now prior to Nilotic, I naturally was always writing soulful melodies, and I would naturally just sing first, and I loved to sing, and I still do. But I remember now when it came to Nilotic, I was very specific with the style that I was writing because I knew what was easily I guess like taken in by society, and when you're at a festival, what just goes. And not to say there are really beautiful soulful festivals, and but there's something really I guess captivating about someone just like rapping da 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 at a festival, and everyone's just like, and it's just energy, right?
Energy. Yeah.
So I was very specific with that because I knew that that's just what people would kind of lap up that little bit better. And I mean, I love it, I really do, but I think at the core of who Elsy is, I would consider myself a soul musician.
So I want us to get into Kaklu.
Yes. You're scaring me, man.
The the grant that came through in 2020 during COVID and the pandemic. And what you stated when this was happening, as you were receiving the grant and talking about it, you said that you are excited that you have a home studio now, and you are looking forward to one day becoming a dope producer.
Yeah.
Tell us about how you got into production and how unintentional this was.
Wow. That's wild. I'm remembering that, to be honest. This is just a side note, but I really want to go back and watch that. That was in an interview. The beautiful thing about that interview was it was in my house. Like, so now next door to where I produced the album. And I just love how beautiful it was that at the time it was just this very innocent, like, I'd love to be a producer. And now it's like you have a whole project that God is good, man.
Self-produced.
God is good.
Written, produced.
That's wild. But no, I think, what was the question?
About how you got into production.
Right, how I got into it. God is good. Honestly, I think that's where it starts. It was all the power of the tongue. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think just in those moments where I would just say, like, I'd love to just be a producer one day. And I think it also not being something that I was pressuring myself into made it very seamless, because I am very particular and I'm a very nitpicky artist. So I think if it was something that I was intentionally going at, I know I never would have reached it because I would have been so hard on myself. But because it was something that was, again, it's like it was COVID time, we were just locked in the house, and I was just like, what am I going to do with myself? And I was like, let me just like press buttons on the computer and try and make music. And it was so, there was no aim, it was just aimless. Like there was no structure to it, and that was the beauty of it. And I was just a child with a blank canvas that just pressed buttons. And I can't lie and say that I had no knowledge in like beats or like rhythm, like, you know what I mean? Like I had that behind me, but now like the understanding of like what production was, I had no idea. So I remember I was even on like Ableton trial for the production of the demos of the project, and you know you don't have access to the full Ableton thing, so then you're only using like wacky, not even wacky, like there's some dope sounds in there, but you're almost limited. But I think now being limited is what made the project so great. Like something like Nilotic, which was the first single, I remember when I got to the string part, I say string part like it's this big, it wasn't even, like it was 2 lines, and it was simply because I'm not the greatest guitarist. So I was like, let me just pick up my guitar and play these 2 notes.
That's wild.
But it's just like
That's
the
wild.
best part of the song. Do you understand? So I think the beauty was the fact that I didn't know, because then that allowed me to just think outside the box, and I didn't have the plugin, so then I just made the sounds with my mouth. And I called my cousin and I was like, yo, I've got this beat. I remember when I was doing Nilotic, my cousin is now, I don't consider myself Kenyan because I don't have the accent. Come at me, come and get me, please come and get me.
In the comments.
I've been disowned. I've been disowned, so I think I'm just. It
so
is
you're
what it
owning
is.
that being disowned.
It's just that's just that's the repercussions, right? But no, so I guess just the reality is he still has the accent, he still knows the words and all of those good things. So I had done the demo of Nilotic, and I said to him, "Can you just like come and I'm gonna play the track." And he hadn't really properly heard it. They would just hear me replaying the same, bar. And I just said, come, step on this mic and just do whatever. Like no guidance, no nothing, just do whatever. And if you knew him as a person, you would know how perfect that is for someone like him. So I remember I gave him the headphones, and he literally was just like, like he would just say the stupidest, most dumbest things, but it was so fire. And there's so many cool ad-libs in there. He's like whistling, he's this, he's that. But yeah, again, it was just because I didn't have these like plugins and like all these things. I was just like, what's the easiest way around it? And it was get my family on it, clap your hands, get a pot, bang on this. And it was just fun. It was just great. It was just so much fun. But that's how I got into production.
Well, that's insane.
Yeah.
The process behind it.
It was just
and how
freedom.
You were improvising and having a lot of creative freedom around the project.
Yeah.
And did you have any production and producer influences at the time?
Not at all. Actually, no, I did. I guess outside of now, even before doing the project, when I was working with like other artists and musicians, I was now working with a producer called Mario Spate, who is like the genius of South Australia, if not Australia. And he's just he is really good at what he does. So I would record with him, but I never really sat at the producer desk. I would always sit at the couch and write my lyrics while he's doing the thing. But I think subconsciously I would just like take things in from just like seeing what he was doing and just seeing how Ableton looked like and cool, like he would color code and he would, you know what I'm saying? So I think I subconsciously took stuff from that. But now outside of that, I think at the core of it, when I was doing the project, it was Ludwig, I forget it's like Grossman. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. He's like German. But Ludwig is who produced and scored Black Panther. So he did like the scoring plus the Kendrick Lamar Black Panther album. And that's honestly when Nilotic started. I remember just watching every single clip. Like I would just search Ludwig and just see how is he creating these things. And he also had a lot of freedom in that production, in the sense of he came to Africa. stole all our things and just went back to Australia and capitalized. No. So he came to Africa and just met up with a lot of musicians and this, that, and he would just sample people and all of these different things. And I just saw so much like freedom, and I was like, this is so easy. Like he's just got his phone most of these times, and he's just like, yo, like play the flute and yell out Killmonger, and this guy just kills it, and he's just that, you know what I'm saying? Like for me, he made it look so easy, and I think that's when I was like, oh, if he can do it, like why can't I? So Ludwig definitely inspired me a lot in just that very authentic, free way of creating. And then there was the likes of there's someone, what was her name? Vince Staples, boy, yeah, right, yeah. Sophia, who unfortunately passed, was a amazing like electronic type of producer, and she also like experimented in a really cool way. But really, at the heart of it, it was just Ludwig. Yeah.
And what you had said earlier about production and using what you have reminded me of, there's this YouTube series by DJ Premier where he goes back to classic songs that he produced and he breaks them down, and akona all of these floppy disks from the 90s as they were recording them.
Crazy.
And anatelis his stories are how the songs came about and those original flop disks, and akona pia a player where he plugs them in, and then we hear the music, and he tells these amazing insightful stories about all these classic records zile aliwakia back then. And it's fascinating, and it's a lot of history through the songs,
right?
What you were talking about.
I'm pretty sure Andre 3000, I forget what it was. I saw a similar documentary, and there was a producer that was saying how when they were it was a mixer, I think, and he would mix and then go play the track in his car because that's where people were listening to music the most. So then if it sounded good in the car, that's all they cared about. And it's just those simplicities of life. I think that's where the true beauty of music really lies. Yeah,
and it's such a fascinating thing to watch and to learn the history behind all of these songs that we cherish and have shaped culture. Really. So we could get into the artwork here. By Pierre Mukeba.
Pierre Mukeba. His name alone makes me happy.
Take us through this. And before you do so, kwa our review of this project, which tulifanya na Irauka over Zoom, we had two perspectives. So my perspective was that the cover captures the duality that we experience kwa the EP. So there is the confident side of Elsy, and then there is the frustration and the heart, and that is the duality here. And then Irauka alikuwa anasema kwake, it's the idea of yes, we can still see Elsy in some way, but the blurriness removes focus from Elsy, and there's this sort of bigger story, the Nilotic story to the EP. But what was the original idea here and
the back?
Here?
That's so crazy. This is what I was saying to you before, where like I was watching the review and there were some things that they were saying that I was like, I didn't even think of it like that. Like that was so wild. But yeah, I mean, I think for me it was, before the blurriness and the effect, me yelling like that was honestly just the frustration. That's, if it was like one facial like expression that I could give to just express how I felt about Nilotic and the project, it would just be that. Because half the time I was just angry. I was very angry. And so for me, it was just, that was the expression that I felt was the best way to capture now the album. After that, I had sent the artwork to, I say artwork, literally my friend took it. This was in my friend's backyard, actually. And she just took it on a camera. So I sent those photos to Pierre. And from there, I just told Pierre, like, do whatever you want. And I think he was actually the one that was, how did we begin? Oh, let me take you back. So like, and this kind of ties to the back with the whole hairstyle thing. Pierre, I can't even explain Pierre. Pierre is like, he's so out of this world that I don't even think there's no words that have enough weight to just like describe. He's just a genius in my eyes. Anyway, he was the one that was just telling me about like first about how like the artistic world, not just the music, but just the creative world is so dark right now. And he was just complaining about how it's, I think Donda just came out and it was like this black just artwork. Like he was just like, it's so dark. So he immediately was like, we have to use bright colors, you know. And he's also a believer. So a lot of the times we spoke, it was all very like biblical and it was all very spiritual and, you know, from such a good place. So I remember he was just like, experiment with your hair. I want you to, you know, just try different things. At the very start, he wanted me to shave my hair off. And I was so for it. But I called my mom. And she was like, girl. But that's when Pierre was like, okay, cool. There's different ways you can braid your hair. And Pierre like he shaves his hair and like cuts his hair like every week with like different patterns. Like go on his page, he's mad. But anyway, so I did all those like different hairstyles and just like, you know, did the shots. But the blurriness, I think that was honestly a Pierre thing. So personally for me, I don't remember. Yeah, I don't think I was I don't remember being like put a blur on it. He did that. I feel like we should call Pierre.
Yeah, that one be what the
What's
concept
the time
was.
in Oz right now? Can we FaceTime him? He could probably tell you the best. But I just loved it. I think seeing it said something. And yeah, I think it's one of those things where, yes, like Nilotic, I was at such a sure place of who I was and in just who I am. But I think there's like in the review, how you guys were saying, there was still such a big room for Elsy to discover because this is the debut. So I really loved that interpretation of just like, it's like cool, like, yeah, we see her, but at the same time, there's still so much room and like, okay, like, but who is she really and what's really going on? But honestly, the blur effect, that's a Pierre question. I trusted him and just said, do your thing. And the back, I remember it was just, I was very, I think I was just like pressured. We didn't have a back. And initially it was supposed to just be like one picture, but everything that I put together didn't really sit well with the front cover because the front cover is very like, it's its own thing. And there was nothing that really complemented it. And this was just me on my phone. I was experimenting on an app. I think it was like InShot or something. And I think I accidentally did like a 4-tile thing when I put, like, I think it was like River Nile, Nilotic, and like 2 faces. And I was like, oh, this is sick. Let me just like dupe it. And then I just duped it and I sent it to Pierre and I was like, yo, look at this. Like, is this cool? And he was like, yeah, sick. And I just loved the idea of having the River Nile and the Nilotic single artwork there as well. That was super dope. But this was just me being at home on my phone, like, what am I going to do for the back cover? And then that's just what happened. But it complemented really well with the front, so... Yeah.
Even based on that, go back to what you said about the production process and the creative process, whereby you're just using what you have,
no direction,
creative freedom,
no direction,
using your phone for this.
Dude, the way God works, it's so crazy, and I think that's the artwork as well was so beautiful because Pierre now, he was someone that I had admired for such a long time, and I knew of, but I had never met, and before we even met and I asked him to do the artwork, I already wanted him to do it, but because he's so like busy and just so great, he's not someone that you could just be like, yo, you know what I'm saying? So I remember I was speaking to now another friend of his and I was like, yo, hit up Pierre, like he has to do this artwork. And long story short, we found ourselves on FaceTime at 3 a.m. Not on FaceTime, it was on Instagram Live, 3 a.m. And he was just like painting and stuff. And we just started talking spiritual and where he was. And the exhibition that he was working on, he was at a very similar place to where I was with Nilotic. So then after that live, I was like, dude, I need to call you like the next morning and we need to chat. So I remember we spoke for hours and he was like, I'm in, like I'm doing it. And yeah, at the end of the day, like I think it was just us just going, do you know what, God, do what you want to do. We're just vessels and we just want to have fun and we want to make music and we want to make art. But can you just be at the core of it? And I think God really just did the thing.
For those of you who watch our Sunday sessions on Instagram, 3 a.m. Instagram live sessions are a thing at Sanaa.
Yes.
They are a thing. We literally do sessions at 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. in the morning.
There's something about that hour.
So before you go to Nilotic, Looking at your earlier tracks, if we talk about intuition,
Ah.
daily, Outcast, and those songs, Never
Yes.
There, Time Flies.
Yeah.
And you've talked about singing. On those songs, you sing. And when you get to The Call,
Yeah.
which is in November of 2022,
Right.
there's been this gap and this shift that we
Yeah.
are witnessing
Yeah.
in the music that you're producing, in the sound and the concepts, right? What was this transition space before we got to The Call? And then a few weeks after, there was Nilotic.
Damn.
And then months after, there was River Nile.
Rivers,
And
yeah.
then the project.
The difference was that I spent time with myself. You know how I was saying the industry is a bit icky. So again, it's like I started at the studio at Northern Sound System, and there's so much beauty in working around people and all of that. But at the end of the day, I mean, I'll speak for myself as an artist. I'm a sponge, so I absorb very quickly and I replicate and I mimic. And I think just being around the people that I was around, I was almost like living up to who they thought I was. And it's that thing I was saying to you about when someone says that you're something, you almost feel obligated to live up to that. And so for a long time, let's say, I was just singing people's songs. I was just features on a lot of rappers' songs. And I was just that girl that can sing. So like, go find that girl that can sing and like sing on your song, which I loved and I really enjoyed. But Nilotic shifted because, again, it was lockdown. So I was at home and it was just me. So I got to now look within myself, find out what I like, not influenced by anyone or anything. I only listened to what I wanted to listen to. I only read what I wanted to read. And so I think now that translated really authentically through the music, because this was now fully Elsy, not, fabricated in any way. And I mean, yes, it's like you get to the point where you're doing the artwork and you're doing the mixing and whatever it is with other people. But prior to getting to that point, the story and the image and the vision was so firm and it was so like solidified that even when I go and just be like, okay, cool, I want you to do this artwork, I still know where it needs to go and I still see where it needs to go. So if you by accident or whatever try to take me somewhere else, I'd be like, let's go back this way, just try a little bit. So yeah, I think the only difference is just that I was so sure of myself because I spent so much time with myself and I was not influenced by anything or anyone.
So there was a lot of me time, a lot of
me time.
reflection, and something you've said about how hands-on you are has reminded me of something I'd said earlier, which was my second point, was you said about how you love knowing things and creating and crafting. That reminded me of our interview with Michelle, who also said the same thing.
Wow.
Literally,
I need to meet
that anapenda kucreate vitu na mkono na kuona the results after, and how yeye pia ako into learning and knowing things, and she's a curious person. So there is that as well. So now as you get into as you're transitioning and sitting with yourself more, how does Elsy move from being someone who enjoys melodies more and focusing on melodies into primarily lyric into a primarily lyric-based art form? Someone who didn't care about lyrics, for the record.
No, I can't say that I didn't care. I think what it is, maybe I think it ties back to now what I was saying, where I was a rapper before I was a singer, subconsciously. Because you have to understand, it's like I'm 6-7 years old listening to like 50 Cent, like Lil Wayne. Like, why do I rap the whole like Nicki Minaj Pink Friday album at a young age? And I can just, and I loved it. I remember growing up, I loved rhythm. I loved I loved it. But again, it's like the way I was saying with like Lingala, there's something about that type of music that just really, really touches my heart. But now it's like being an artist, you're now having to almost be like you're a prophet now. So now it's almost like it's a duty to not only feed your heart, but you're now having to speak for other people, speak for other, like, do you know what I mean? So I think when I came to Nilotic and just that the idea of, okay, how am I going to deliver this? I think hip hop or just rap was a no-brainer because, one, it's easily digestible, especially when you want to say something very important. Because I remember being a singer, I could never say something and people hear me because it's like, wow, like you're so good at singing and you sound so sweet. Like, did you hear what I said? Do you understand? You have something like Outcast where, I mean, I think that was definitely received very well, but it's like, for me, I remember that song when I was writing, I was like, this is so deep, you understand? But because it's so melodious, you kind of get lost. And rap, there's no melody, so you have no choice but to listen to the words. So it was the perfect way to just come at people because they had no option. Do you understand? So I think I just found that hip hop had a drive that singing didn't, and
So
it was the best way.
the choice of medium,
Oh yeah,
right? The choice
Yeah.
of what the medium is
Yeah.
and what it can offer.
Yeah.
So speaking of Lil Wayne, did Lil Wayne make you pick up the skateboard?
No,
Okay.
it wasn't Lil Wayne. I
Lupe
want to.
Fiasco, kick push.
No, do you know what? It was Jaden Smith. Yeah, I love Jaden Smith.
Okay.
I love that man. It was Jaden Smith. And I think, I mean, you could probably say, I feel like a lot of things happen subconsciously, but
Yeah.
the one thing that I loved about skating was honestly the sound that the board makes when it hits the ground. It's not even the skating. I just love how it sounds when it like hits the ground. So I just fell in love with that. And obviously to hear that, you need to buy a skateboard. But then I also just like to roll around. But I've just always wanted to be a skateboard kid. But then it also falls back to Elsy Wameyo being that person that hates not knowing. So I'm the person that will try everything just to say, I've done it. Let me go and skydive. Let me go and read. Let me go and bungee jump. And, you know, probably hate it, but I've done it. So I can tell you that I hate it.
Trying everything, like
Yeah.
reading Nini,
Yeah.
Think and Grow Rich.
Yes, you have to do those
As you-
things, man.
As you were telling me earlier, so River Nile, the track is ferocious. You know, it and it follows Nilotic, as I said earlier,
Yeah.
in terms of order of release. Nilotic was released in November 2021, and then in February, River Nile came through 2 months prior to
Yeah.
the release of the EP.
Yeah.
And qua the press release, you stated, River Nile is a revelation and a turning point that led me to understand who I truly am, which you've
Yeah.
touched on. I had been so weak, fighting a battle that was never mine. This song came about after I learned how to strategically use the power within. I journeyed with this song to find a place of rest. I reached a level where I no longer had to work. Instead, I used the forces around me to gain altitude. The moment I found it, it was game over for everyone else. Give us more
Period. I'm so
perspective.
annoyed. Damn.
Tell them.
Sheesh.
Give us more perspective about this.
Yeah, I mean, there was almost seasons. So like the beginning of River Nile was now at the back of Nilotic. So I had just finished writing Nilotic, and like I said at the beginning of that, Nilotic was a battle. I was very angry, and coming to River Nile, I had to try and find a place where I could still deliver that like ferocious, you know, energy, but not be angry, because being angry takes a lot of effort. Like it takes so much out of you. And I remember time you're crying, like, yeah, like there was times like I couldn't even create because I was so angry. And I remember now when I started River Nile, I wrote the first like section, like the first 4 lines or whatever it was. Last time I wrote was a medical piece.
But now my heart's
But now my heart's at ease, been in a fight to defend
Defend
my
my
peace,
peace.
right? And that was literally just me saying, like, last time I wrote was a medical piece was Nilotic, literally saying that Nilotic for me was me trying to like find the medicine, do you understand? Because I was so angry and I was trying to like figure it out and like be this hero that's gonna just like solve, you know, like racism in one song, you know what I'm saying? And now River Nile was that place I was like, okay, cool, like I need to relax. But after those first few lines, I was in writer's block for months after, like it was, the people that were with me were just, I'm pretty sure they were like, this girl's crazy. But I was struggling so hard. Because first I'm like, okay, cool, God, we have Nilotic. We have a hit. We have other songs to do. Like, where you at? Do you know what I mean? Like, I was so confused. Like, I was like, how can God just come and like drop this gem and then just disappear? And so I think I was now like trying to figure out, cool, like what's the direction? Where am I going? Was this all just a fluke? Is this even an EP? And then now I had to go back to spending time with God, and I think it was a really beautiful way of God just kind of like humbling me and reminding me like, child, this is not you. You know what I'm saying? And so I spent a lot of time just reading the word and praying and all of that good stuff. And that's when I had the revelation of just like, this isn't Elsy Wameyo. Like this whole EP was not Elsy Wameyo. And I don't know how people kind of understand that, but it truly wasn't me. I was simply just a vessel. And once I realized that I was only this little tiny part of this really big problem, that was when God could work. Because after Nilotic, child, no one could talk to me.
Game
After
over.
hit
Game over. Yo, that thing is very infectious.
After Nilotic,
They're very infectious.
After Nilotic, I was on top of the world. I remember a friend of mine came into the house and he just like saw the Ableton screen. And this is someone that's never produced before. And he was like, you did all that? And I was like, yeah, I did that. You know what I'm saying? And I think I was at this place of just like, like I'm that guy. And God was like, you are? I bet. And he just disappeared. And so I had to really humble myself and go back to that place of like, okay, cool. Like, what is this for? Why am I saying this? But I really had to just go back, and I was humbled, and I now understood why it was the way it was. And that was when the revelation came. The River Nile revelation was that God was the one that was in control and I was simply a vessel. And now the idea of, not having to work. I remember watching a sermon. I forget the lady that was preaching, but she was talking about how like eagles, when they fly, they reach a certain altitude and then they just don't have to flap their wings because they're soaring. And at this point, they're just going. And then she was using that as an analogy for just how God works, where like he elevates you to this point where like all you have to now do is soar. Before you get there, yes, you have to flap your wings, but you get to this point and this altitude where it's like you're just soaring and he does it all. And that's where I reached with River Nile. It was just like God was the boat and I was just like sitting and the stream was just going, and really that's where I landed. And after I came terms with that, and I just gave my life back to God and I just surrendered this EP back to him, the EP was written like that. And it just happened.
A flow, River Nile. Never.
Yo,
Never.
don't chat to me. Don't chat to me.
Interestingly,
don't chat to me.
I was to ask about your line here last time. I wrote was a medical piece because I was thinking to myself, what is Elsy referring to? What is this medical piece that you are referring to? So since you've broken that down, dissect for us this refrain that should have invested the first time, because that's kwa comment section ya hiyo ngoma, people quote that line, should have invested the first time. Take us through that.
Do you know that I feel like there's a lot of sides to it, but do you know when you're someone that I think there's definitely a lot of aspects. I can take it back to now, let's say even in my immediate family, being the youngest girl. That comes with a lot. And it's that thing of like, it's just Elsy, it's just Tish, it's just whatever. Like, no one really pays mind to you, right? Because it's just like, you're the youngin', like no one really cares. But then in yourself, if you know who you are, especially in Christ, and if you know the power that you have, you almost, first you get agitated because it's just like, listen to me, like, why won't you listen to me? But then I find a lot of beauty in like when you read like the word of God about just how like God elevates the story of like King David being now the youngest and now becoming like the biggest king. And it's just, I find, so it's honestly just humorous. Like, it's always the ones that are like bullied and, made to feel super small that end up becoming the kings and the greats.
Is it a case of the first become last and the last become first?
Basically, 100%. And I think, and now it's like taking that into the industry where it's like, who is this black girl that just thinks she can like, take over the world? Having an confidence is now seen as having an ego, which is now a bad thing. And I think as a female artist especially, once you show any sign of like I'm confident in who I am, people now try to like hack you down. And I think just that it was just really that place of me going, first, I knew exactly what River Nile was the moment I had the revelation. I knew how powerful that song was going to be. And so me saying should have invested was because I had already seen what was to come. And I had already seen it all unfold, and people are gonna come and be like, "Yo, Elsy, like we repped you from the beginning,"
and call you for interviews.
Do you understand? But yeah, it was just that thing. I could see the events unfolding already, and me being the blunt person that I am, that's just super like, if you didn't mess with me before, it's just like, that's on you. Do you understand? And I find so much humor in that. In the most humble way possible. No, but I think it's, for me, it was really just an in-your-face moment of like, I've hacked the system. I don't know. I've made a track that's going to be cool. Like, I don't know. And I really I just took pride in knowing that I am great. And if you don't think so, that's on you. You should have invested the first time. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to understand, I think, your friends and just people around you being blessed is also your blessing. So for me, it's like, you're only hurting yourself by not being my friend or like by not being good to me, because it's like me. That's facts. And this isn't like, it's not me. I think it's a general thing. It's like, you're going to do so much better when you know, like congratulate your friend or like help your friend or like, because at the end of the day, it's like, what is it in the word? I should have brought a Bible or something. There was a chat that I had with someone and he said it so beautifully, just that thing of like, it's like when God blesses someone, how did he say it? I have to remember. Oh my gosh, it was Humphrey. Do you know Humphrey?
Mm-mm.
Drummer. There was something we were talking about and he said it. Do you know what? It might be my phone. This is why I shouldn't have turned it off. There was something that he said so beautifully, and it was just that
you should have invested the first before
on my
record.
Like, no, he said it so beautifully, but it was just that. It's just that idea of like, when God, it's like when God blesses you, if anything, I should be more excited because it's like God is here. So if anything, I'm going to be next. Like you're not, you know what I mean? It's like if He's blessing my friend that's such close proximity to where I am, why am I mad? I should be like, okay, cool, my turn is coming. Do you understand? So I think for me, it's that thing of like, it's not to boast. It's not to be like, bow down. Not at all. It's just that thing of like, I want to see all of us come up together. Do you understand? And I think the only way that can happen is if we all invest in each other. And if you don't, it's going to be your loss. Do you understand? It's very hard for me to now go back and try and you know what I'm saying? Bring someone on board that's like, do you understand? It's very easy if it's like we're on the same page, we're rolling together, let's, so I think it's just invest in your friends, invest in your people, invest in like, let me brag. This is my friend's merch. Go and get it. Phoenix Streetwear. Invest in your friends, like wear their clothes, post their stuff. Do you understand? Like, what is it doing to you? Like, just
buy their vinyls.
Buy the vinyl.
Invest in Sanaa Sana. Give us money. We always say it, but
you watch, comment, like do the whole thing because it benefits you, if anything. So yeah, that's all it was. It was just like, joke's on you. Should have invested the first time.
So let's get into language. And ningependa kusikia from you, how does language relate to your identity? How does it tie?
This is like a therapy question. That's crazy. It's a big one because I think I've really been in a battle of who am I, in the sense of, like I said before, I really find it very hard to call myself Kenyan because I find that I've been disowned. And people, like my family's like, you're not Kenyan, like you're Australian. So I've really already just taken myself out of that. And so when you say language, obviously the first thing that comes up is the Swa and the Luo and things like that, which are obviously used in the music for a reason, right? But, I mean, for me, at the end of the day, it's like, it's almost like that thing where certain jokes sound nicer in Swa. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like if I said a joke in English versus it in Swahili, like it's just not going to hit the same. And I think especially now when you go to like mother tongue world, there are certain things that you say I love you in Luo and it's just like, oh my gosh. Like, or you say Jesus in Luo and you're like, oh, like it just feels there's a lot of weight to it almost. So I think, yeah, I don't know, but I don't know. I'm in a battle. Identity hurts. I'm still trying to figure it out. Don't be fooled by Nilotic. She still doesn't know who she is.
It's still blurry.
Do you understand? I feel like that's what Pierre was like. This child is confused. Blur the picture. Blur the picture.
Still on language, you explored the idea of the Luo.
Yes.
At least on record, Mara ya Kwanza on Outcast, right?
I did. Sheesh.
And then on the record here, on the EP, there is Sulwe and there is Hunger.
Yeah.
So I'd love to understand. So as you are conceptualizing the songs in your head,
Yeah.
did the idea formulate themselves the way we are hearing them, or did you think of them in a different language and then did you translate them?
It's always going to be English, right? Because I think in English first. But I thought about, like, it was the thing of like, all right, I know that I want to say this in Luo. So like, I remember I got my dad to come into the studio. Bless that man.
Years later, after Kupeleke NSS.
I was like, full circle moment. That was a full, I didn't even realize, but I did capture on video because I knew it was a very special moment. It was so much fun. But I remember I called him out of work and I was like, I'm in the studio and I need you to translate stuff in. No, it's not like, the thing is, I know stuff, but I think he just obviously did it so much nicer. So it was obviously first in English, but I knew that I wanted it to be said in Luo. And I remember actually the one that we started working on first, I think was Hunger, or was it, whichever one it was. But I remember there were times where we were actually writing as we went. So then I remember, like, I would say to my dad, I really want to say just like this and that in the lines of this, and then he would just give me the words. Again, because there are certain words that you say and it holds a little bit more weight. So like for me, the way I know Luo, there are certain words I would say that may not really mean, you know, when you translate, like even if it's Swahili, like you translate it to English and it may not exactly mean what you're really saying, the direct translation. So we just had a lot of back and forths of like, okay, what's the best word to say this, you know? But it all started in English first, prior to if it's Swa or like... Actually, no, do you know what? I lied, because Swa is not... I'm actually okay at Swa. So when I was doing River Nile, that was easy. Like, I remember just like writing that. But that was simple because it was like 3 words, 4 words. But the Luo was like, yeah, I needed... all hands on deck.
Guidance.
I needed guidance,
and help. So, kwa the review again, I asked about the perspective behind Sulwe. Because as I was listening to this song,
he was like, what is she saying?
go watch that review and then in comment section.
Honestly,
Elsie commented
and I
just
told, go watch and come back.
I told Elsie, since Jajibu my questions, we shall have this conversation, and here we are. Because I was listening to the track and I'm trying to figure out, okay, who is the persona?
What's the perspective?
Yes,
right.
Who is the narrator here? And I have watched, I think ilikuwa your AU Dollars interview. And you talked about the perspective behind the song, whereby you're going back to class and that moment where you're being teased, people making fun of you. And so when I had that perspective, I was trying to reflect more on the song and trying to think, so are the voices we are hearing, are those them, or are these people who are reflecting this new light that you're seeing yourself in? And even lyrics such as siamini ni wewe, kweli ni we, nikupe chochote,
sing it,
and who this is to self. So take us through this.
It's complicated because the process of the writing was exactly that. Because so this is going to be long still. When I started, so this was the track that I actually produced with my friends, and we were in a room at the Northern Sound System, and we were actually just there as like mannequins. We were supposed to be there as mannequins, but we ended up producing Sulwe. And so what the situation was, there was a visitor that was coming to the Northern Sound System to just like see the space, et cetera, et cetera. So we were just kind of there to kind of make it look like things are happening. Not that things don't happen. Things happen. But we were just there to, you know, Anyway, we were just there for vibes. And yeah, so we were anticipating her arrival, right? At this point, we've been told it's this very important person, so you have to, as soon as she comes, just like do something and make it look cool.
Get busy.
So I think she was a little bit late, But anyway, it basically got to the point where she was like about to come. At this point, we had already basically like produced Sulwe. So as like someone came in and just said, she's about to come, like prepare yourself. My thing was just like, Amikuja, like, oh my gosh, like she's here, That's literally where it came from. So she came and then she left, and then I had the idea of like, let me just do like a sample over the track. So we put up the mic, and the first thing that I said was, Amikuja, angalieni, because it was simply from that interaction. From there, we finished the production and we left. I now took it back to my studio and I started arranging and putting things together. And now I started to think, okay, where is this song going to go and how is it going to fit in Nilotic? Because initially, I nearly didn't put it in the EP because of the process that it was, how it came about. It didn't really speak to Nilotic. So then I was like, okay, cool. I love the track. So how do I now tie it back to what Nilotic is? And so now I had to sit with it because I was like, I'm not going to write it about this lady coming into the studio. So then I sat with it. Now I went back to Lupita Nyong'o's book, which was Sulwe. And that's where majority of it was stemmed from, just her outlook on empowering the young black girl and the beautiful dark skin and that whole world. So then I now remembered my journey as a black girl growing up in Australia and, being picked on because I was very dark and I ate different foods and I looked different and et cetera, et cetera. So now putting myself in that shoe, I now translated the meaning of Amikuja as like this foreigner has just like come, like who is she? Like she's just arrived in Australia. Now I went back to now finding power, because now at that point it's just like, okay, I'm being teased, right? But now I was like, how do I find power in that? So then I put myself in a different world of being now in Kenya, being the girl that grew up in Nairobi and having, let's say, like cousins or family that lived in Shags. And there's that idea or like that thing that happens where when you're from Nai and you go back to Shags, there's always that like anticipation of, Amekuja, like what have you brought for me? Like, da 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 da. So I remember when I was writing, I had that picture in my head of like, Elsy Wameyo from Australia has returned back to Shags. And I remember just putting myself in that light of like, whether it's my shosh or whoever it is, and they're just so greatly just like anticipating my arrival. And so then I put myself in that limelight and just went, okay, what do I have to offer? And then now going back to Sulwe meaning star in Luo, it was just like I kind of had to put myself in that limelight and just be like, I am a star. Like it's like me as this black woman, it's like that's beauty, that's greatness. And it's Sulwe, you know what I'm saying? Like I am that star. So then it was diverging that back to now being great and being a light, So now it's just like, oh my gosh, like this star has come. So yeah, the reason why it sounds so complicated is because I'm talking in so many different perspectives of first being super low, but then understanding that at the end of the day, it's like I am great, But yeah, I loved it because I knew that it would open up room for people to interpret it in very many ways. Take it as you wish. Whatever you find from it, I pray that it elevates and that it inspires and that it gives you confidence.
And interestingly, I think nilisema your perspective, you going back home,
yes.
and people
Which, it's just, it's
receiving you. And then something else was the duality which you talked about earlier. And you have River Nile, you have Nilotic with the fierceness and the vibrance that are on the tracks, and then you have your Sulu, you have your Promise, and you have Hunger, which are more sentimental and softer tracks. And there's something you say again about the EP, the press release, and still about the journey. And you say, what you will hear is the journey of a confident, frustrated, and sad Elsy attempting to heal within. What you won't see is a spiritual journey I took with my father to learn through obedience and true faith that I can do all things. This EP was never the point. Nilotic is just a byproduct of God's grace in my life. So you've touched upon some talking points already. Is there anything else you could add in terms of insights into the mental, emotional, and spiritual space you are in before and also during the creative process?
If anything, it's just reiterating the fact that, again, it wasn't the music. God, I think, took me through a very unique personal journey that I didn't even see up until, I guess, River Nile, which was months in already. And like, again, I was just enjoying the process of creating, and I was enjoying the process of making music by myself. But I didn't realize what God was truly doing, behind the scenes. Prior to Nilotic, I spent maybe a year with my prayer partner, just reading the word and praying and crying and worshiping and dancing. And I remember there was a time where I had tapped in so deep that I was dreaming of the next day. And I know that sounds crazy. And I know that it's hard to fathom. But I remember there was this one day I had dreamt of something. And do I tell the story? It wasn't even that. I dreamt of the next day, let's just say that. And once I saw it in real life, I literally went to my mum crying, like, oh my gosh, like, it's a thing. This is how God works. I have to tell this story. So I had dreamt, let me just,
Go
I
ahead.
dreamt that there was so in front of my house, we've got like a yard, and there was like planks of wood that needed to be picked up by the council because we were getting rid of them or something like that. So my mum knew that they were getting picked up at a certain time the next day, so she wanted to add stuff. So that night I dreamt of some man just coming, not taking anything, but just kind of like seeing it and then like just leaving. So now the next morning, my mum wakes up and she's like, oh, like, where's half the stuff gone? Have the council already come? Because I needed to put more stuff. So like half of the wood was gone. And I jokingly, so at this time we're in my room and we're looking outside, and I jokingly said to her, I was like, oh, wait, like I had a dream this old man came. He didn't take anything, but haha, like maybe he did, And it was just like laughs, jokes. This was like 10 a.m. She leaves. I'm still making Nilotic, so I go back to my studio. I remember I was just like recording, and the way my room was set up, my studio was like in a corner because I had to try and make the sound as beautiful as it was. And so I was facing away from the window, and I don't know why, but something just made me like turn around and look outside. And I just looked outside, and the same man was at the front of my house looking at the wood, and like the same steps, like the way I explained it to my mom was exactly how he moved, and he didn't touch it. He just came, like saw, and then just like left. I put my headphones down so quickly and just ran to my mom, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've just seen what happened. And it was just this really weird thing. And then there would be really weird moments, like I'd be driving with my cousin and I would see a truck. I remember there was a time we were driving to church and I was like, go on this lane, that truck is going to stop you. And he was like, what truck? And there wasn't a truck there, but then like later on the truck comes and it's the same. And it was just really weird stuff. Anyway, because I had tapped in so deeply spiritually, I think that God was revealing so many things, and I was able to see and experience, just like the supernatural. And that for me was now the whole point, because I discovered so much power and like the grace of God, and just how great he is once you allow him to just like do the thing. I really experienced the true power that we like sing about, and how we say, oh my gosh, like God is great. Like I truly witnessed how great God is when you just surrender. And like I used to say to people, like, if anyone was to come and like burn the hard drive that these songs were on, I wouldn't have cared less, because what I was taught behind the music was what was most important. And the music was just a byproduct for me to be like, guys, this is what God has done. Because otherwise, no one's going to believe you. I had a dream and saw him like, no one's going to believe that. But it's like, if I've now got lyrics and tracks from someone that just has never produced, it's like, okay, cool, like maybe she is saying something. Do you understand? So for me, it wasn't the music. I thank God for the music, but I know very well that it was just the journey that I walked with God, and what I was taught through that.
And for the lyrics that you talk about, for those of you who've heard the EP, you've definitely heard the presence of God and the importance of God kwa Elsy, and then through this as well, if you haven't heard the EP yet, you can tell. However, I would like to know if during this process of God being an anchor, were there moments you had of skepticism?
Of the tracks not being done, or of God not coming through?
Similar to the moment you had after Nilotic.
That was, honestly, I think that was the only moment truly. And that was my fault. You know what I'm saying? I think that was the only time where I was like, God, where you at? Like, we just did Nilotic, like, what's going on? And he just disappeared. That was honestly the only time. And that was my fault because I had started at such a pure place and I was so innocent and I was like, yeah, like, let me just like do this thing. Let me be a vessel. And as soon as you gain something, you're like, cool, God, like, move out the way. I got it from here. And he's like, nah, that's not how it works. So as soon as that happened, it was just me, myself, and I. And me, myself, and I is the ghetto. Because me as Elsy, I'm not capable. I truly am not. And that's when you start talking about God being so like omnipresent and like, you know, he's not bound by time. He doesn't get tired. He doesn't, you know. But yeah, that was probably the only hiccup where I was like, okay, cool, like God. But that wasn't even like, you know, I wasn't second guessing God. For me, it was, if anything, it was like, I'm learning that it is God, you know, and that there is power in that. But after that, honestly, yeah, I was fine because I was taught that faith. And that's what I say. It's like, it was the journey because I really saw the faithfulness of God to even come back and be like, all right, let's finish this EP, spoke magnitudes, you know. So for me, I can't say that I can't say that I ever really doubted God. For me, it was just, it was all my fault. It was all me.
So from religious identity and belief systems, you can go into political identity, social identity, racial identity, and how has your blackness and or your Africanness interacted with different places, different geographical locations all over the world?
I think it's similar to every other black person's story who lives in the diaspora. I guess I could speak for, because I think living in Africa in general might be a bit different. I think there's still like racism or like brutality, but in a different light, which I haven't fully experienced, so I can't really speak on. But I think living in the diaspora, it's really just what you see online. In Australia, it's a really big thing where, as a black person, you can like walk into a shop and you see everyone like looking at you like, oh, she's about to steal. I'm dead. The fact that people behind the camera are laughing is wild. That is wild. You guys, I'm gonna give you a second. The fact that you're laughing is crazy. Guys,
bad
that's
people,
wild.
bad people.
You said it.
Y'all are bad.
No, this is not even a humorous subject. No, listen though, I think, there's this thing of like, as a black person, no matter where you are, like you feel people staring at you, and there's always just that, like, you're followed around the store and it's like, you know, and then now the bad thing is that now it seeps into you. So now whenever I go to a shop, let's say sometimes, even if I don't buy anything, I always feel like I should, for the sake of them knowing, okay, like, cool, she got something. Otherwise it's like, why did you walk into that store and like not get anything, you know? So there's like little things like that, and it just makes you super like aware in all the wrong ways. Like you have to watch your every move, and you're tiptoeing almost, you know, and that makes you act a certain way, that makes you talk a certain way. Because when I'm with like my black friends, we're loud, we're this, we're that, but then you see me in a different environment with different types of people. I guess you're almost like, I guess it's like you kind of tone down a little bit, just all in the name of let's just like not be big and scary and loud and intimidating. But I think just all in all, I always go back to Nilotic, because Nilotic was the point where I just didn't care. Like, I was like, this is who I am. Like, we are loud, like we are black, we have cool hair, we dress funky. Like, y'all are the ones that are replicating. Like, how are you gonna hate on someone and then steal their style, make it make sense? Do you understand? Like, so for me, it's like I had to really translate that into power and go, no, because even after like slavery and all this oppression, they're still copying us. We're still setting the trends. You know what I'm saying? So I think that is what gave me power even after the racism and all of that. But it definitely does mold you, especially being a little black girl that moves across to a country that's, I call it living in white walls. And it does something to you. It truly does, subconsciously, whether you like it or not. And naturally, being a human, everyone wants to fit in and everyone wants to belong and everyone wants to be seen. But when you're seen for all the wrong reasons, you know, it makes you now want to hide. But when you're a black person, hiding is not part of the equation. Do you understand? So it's a tug and pull. It's a really big tug and pull that I think is endless. I don't think it ever really will ever end. I don't think there's a point you get where you rest. But I think you better yourself. Yeah.
And being in this sort of liminal space that you're in, this is not home. You're not Kenyan, as you've been told. Australia is not home. You don't come from here. You don't belong. How has your blackness and Africanness interacted with this space here? How has that been?
It's 50-50. This is a beautiful question because the past week I have been tested.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I've really been tested. This morning I was talking to my auntie and I was just like, yo, it's been 50-50 because I love being here because the people are lovely. And I think there's different demographics and everything. But like, when I say the people, I'm thinking like, you know, on the street, people just have like time to be like, hey, like, how's your day going? And they'll just like sit there and talk to you for like 20 minutes and be like, all right, cool, bet. And people have like, people see you and people hear you and people are just really happy and really kind. I think Kenyans are known for being super, super nice. But there is a flip side to that where it's like when you're coming from a land like Australia where it's very polite, you say thank you after everything, you say please after everything, but then you come to a country like here, let's say in certain environments, super sterile environments, where it's just like, who are you? Especially when you're, like me, the thing is I've been out for a long time, so even before I speak, you see me and you know that I'm not from here, but then if someone's gonna like just see me and immediately just go like, oh, she thinks she's all that. Like, who is she? Like, that bugs me because it's like, you don't know who I am. And I think that's the first thing that makes me want to disown myself as a Kenyan very, very fast because it's like, you're not going to take me. So then why would I claim myself to be you? Do you understand? Like, you've already gone like, you're not from here. Like, who do you think you are? It's like, I bet I'm not from here. Do you understand? So I think it's been a tug and pull because there are beautiful people like you guys that I meet and you guys are the sweetest and I love it. And like, I've fallen into the most beautiful circle of people. But then there's just those sterile environments that you're really reminded that you have an accent and you look a certain way and you walk a certain way and your energy is very different and they don't like that. And I guess that's just how it is.
And these are topics that you touch on, and this duality once again on The Call, on Nilotic, which you've mentioned, on River Nile, which are the only songs that have videos from the EP. What was
and
what was the visual what was the visual direction for those videos? What was the going into them?
Yeah, Nilotic they were both quite different. I think Nilotic obviously being the first, that was the one that I was like, okay, cool. Australia's going to see who the Nilots are and they're going to see the Maasais and you've got the calls and the chants and all of that. So my goal for that, honestly, was to make it look as Kenyan and as African as possible. Obviously, I had to do it in Adelaide, so it was a bit of a task, but I worked with an amazing videographer who goes by the name of Richie Coburn. Big up, Richard. And we kind of just finessed making it look like I was at home. And I remember getting messages from aunties like, oh my gosh, like you're in Nairobi, this, that. And I was like, yes, I've executed it, I've done it, you know. But yeah, for Nilotic, it was really simply, let's just showcase who we are. Let me bring the cultures. And I really wanted to not only show like the Luo side, but I had the Dinka, I had my friends who are Sudanese from like the Dinka tribe come and do their traditional dance, and then I had the Kalenjin women come in. I really wanted to just like show the different types of Nilots that there are. And now jumping into River Nile just being that place of like, I felt like River Nile, if I was to explain it in an image, it's like God being my big brother that's like fending for me, and I'm just in the back like, that's probably the best image that I could describe for River Nile, because I think it was, again, that was a revelation where I was like, okay, it's not me, so I'm just gonna be in the back but still be like, yeah, check my guy out. You understand? So River Nile was just a flex for me because I was like, I'm covered, I'm good, like nothing's gonna go wrong now. And River Nile was fun. It was just yeah, like I just got a bunch of friends and I really wanted to, like still you had like, you know, the River Nile kind of replicated through I think we were just at like was it like a little lake or something at a friend's house? Just being on a horse, that's just vibes. Like what's that got to do with River Nile? That was just vibes.
Royalty.
Sure, you know, I think honestly at the bottom of it all, I really just wanted to just have fun, and I went back to just that place of just experimenting and wanting to do really cool stuff that a lot of people don't do, especially in Australia. When you look at videos, I'm not coming for anyone, but you see it and it looks like people just don't care. Like I feel like it's like you spend years and time on like the lyrics and you think about it and you know, metaphorically, similarly, this, that, but then you come to the video and you're just kind of like, let me just rap in front of the camera. It's like, how does that, you know, in terms of like the music now, like replicate it through the visuals? You know, for me, I took the visuals, it was just as important as the words were, because it was still telling the story, but now visually. And honestly, it's like the most important part, because it's like, now you're seeing what I'm saying. So I think I just had to, I had to be super like specific and intricate with who I had in front of the camera, what was going on. Like, yes, it was vibes, but I really wanted to make sure that it was just things that people weren't doing. Like I was finding that horse was not easy, is what I'm trying to say, you know. But it was just the horse. No, but all in the name of just like putting things on screen that people are just too, not afraid, but just too lazy to do. You know, because I think I got the inspo from Little Sims's song, Point and Kill, you can't stop. You know that scene that she's on a horse? I remember I saw that and I was like, I'm going to be on a horse. I don't care how, I'm going to find a horse and I'm going to sit on a horse, because it just looked sick. And I'm pretty sure there are so many people out there that want to do stuff like that, but they just it's easier to just rap in front of the camera. So
as you can hear, Elsy is speaking the language of Sanaa kwa sana. You can see our cameraman is laughing. Our sound person is also laughing. Tumeongelea videos.
Wait, am I missing something?
We've talked about videos,
right,
and video concepts,
right,
and how basic they are. It's just a camera, and I'm just I'm just rapping.
Yes.
No,
that's facts.
Irabuka's voice, Tunadu.
No, but I think there's I don't know. The visuals are so important, man. There's so much you can do. And I mean, I can't say, like, I definitely do give room to tracks that it's just vibes, because I think even lyrically, like how we were talking about like mumble rap, or like I think there's definitely times to make music for vibes, for sure. There's definitely room for that. But I mean, if you're gonna take imagine me writing Nilotic and then just like rapping in front of, do you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like it wouldn't make sense. But I think the same way we give space for just like vibes is the same way we should also give space for like, okay, cool, like let's be serious, let's give something with, you know, substance.
With thought, and with concept, and with people who are going all in and trying out different ideas. So regarding the process, you are working with the label, and you worked with the label for this rather than putting it out, Music in Exile. How is the process of releasing a project while you are working with the label, from creating it to writing, the mixing and mastering, the releasing?
It's really interesting, because again, and this is why God is so good, even working with Music in Exile, it's not for me anyway, it's not the typical like I've signed to a label type thing. It was and is very fluid. Joe, who is the founder of Music in Exile, is the simplest way is just like, he's someone with a really beautiful heart, and he appreciates the art more than he does, I guess, the industry, let's say. And his label specifically actually is for just multiculturalism, and he's only signed like people from, you know, diverse backgrounds, and it's all in the name of like putting us on the map, which I already fell in love with. So the way we work, it's really interesting, because it's like I'm still independent. You know, I think it's almost like the contract was all in the name of him just being legally able to now sell the music. Do you understand? But at the back of it, it's like that contract really to both of us doesn't really mean anything. And so a lot of the times, I mean, in the process, I just created. I had no one in the back going, "Are you done yet? Are you?" I mean, yeah, they did. I'm not gonna lie. At the end, they were like, "Where's the music at?" But it was just that thing of like, I had freedom, and they waited, and they just said, "You know what? You do your thing," and he gives me all the room to do that. And then when it comes to now the releasing, the same way I care for every single word and letter is the same way I am with the release. So the back end, I think I'm just someone, I care a lot. And so in the threads, I have to be in every thread. I have to be, I don't care who you're talking to, make sure I'm CC'd. I have to see every conversation. And I'm just very on top of everything. And so even in the release of it, I'm still the forefront. And at the end of the day, they work for me. So it's like, I'm the one that's still making the calls, and they just so beautifully, cater to whatever I ask for. So it was really seamless. I think MIE gave me the best foundation to release a debut EP, and they invested in Elsy Wameyo when no one else wanted to. So I always say they will receive tenfold. They invested. It's a big risk to just like pick up an artist and be like, all right, we're gonna put this amount of money, and go and record an album and just like, we'll see whatever happens. But I think they also saw, I guess they just saw what was to come, and they appreciated the art. And so I thank God for that, because not many people did. I think a lot of people wait for you to do this, and then they'll be like, okay, cool, let me sign you. No one wants to invest, because it's like, how am I going to get here then? Do you understand? Yeah. Like, it doesn't make sense. I think that's one thing that I loved about Joe. He was just like, we'll get here together. We'll figure it out.
So you earlier talked about part of the recording process and your production process, and those seemed like fun moments.
Yes.
What is one tedious moment during the process that you can tell us about?
The hardest parts, and I don't think it was just one moment, but after leaving my room, now that I had like these demos, I now had to share it with the world. Not the release, but now like the mixing. So the mixing was the next step. So I worked with Mario Spate on the mixing side of things. And I remember at the very beginning, I think it would have been like day one, I remember having this conversation about just like, you're not going to get it. And I remember just telling him a lot, because he's very good at what he does. And I think every producer has their thing. And then him obviously not being African is not going to understand why I've, repeated the same, call out for the whole track, why there's Marsa. It's just like, because for him, it's repetitive and it's annoying. And I remember even him telling me that in the studio, like, yeah, I don't think we should do this, that's repetitive and annoying. But because I was so sure of myself, I was like, no, like this stays. But there was a lot of tug and pull in the mixing process and this, because it was like, he just didn't get it. And I understood that. And that's why at the beginning I said, I know that this is going to be a very hard journey for the both of us, because we're going to clash a lot. But I had faith and stuck it out, because I knew, like I was saying to you earlier, I was in a place where I knew who I was. Like no one could, shift me. And so I was like, cool, I'm going to stick it out. So that was probably the hardest part, just like the mixing process and finding that middle ground of, okay, what does the industry want? And what's just the authenticity of what Nilotic is. And I really just had to like make this face a lot of the times and just scream it out and just be like, this is what it is. All in the name of the culture and all in the name of this is what has to be said. But yeah, that was probably the hardest part, just that mixing process, simply because now you're working with different energies who may not understand, Yeah.
The cultural standpoints
It's
are different, and so
even
that
just the creative, like forget
yes,
the cultural. Sure. When you're working like art, like artists are very like, we're all so sensitive, and we all have our own ways of thinking and our own, you know what I'm saying? I think there are definitely a lot of artists that are open to different things and can be like, okay, cool, I see that. You come across like people that are like, I don't get it, but I'll see it through. But then there are people that will be like, I don't get it, get rid of it, So I think it's, even before the culture, I think just even musically, there were things that we were clashing on, simply because he's a producer that has done time. Like, I've just come out of my bedroom like, here's an EP, like, do you know what I mean? Like, he's got, and even for me, I'm sitting at a place of like, okay, this is someone that has done production for a long time. He knows what he's saying. But I think for me, I value it's not substance. I think I just valued what I had to say so much to the point where I couldn't let it be diluted all in the name of this is the the map of how
The
it should
standard.
be done. This is the standard. Stuff the traditional, man. I don't care about 4/4 time. River Nile, the amount of people that were like, "What's the timing at the beginning?" I don't care, man. I just didn't care because that's just how I felt. So that's how I'm gonna put it down. If it doesn't make sense to you, go play something else. Then,
Play something else.
play something else. But then come back and play River Nile.
You've been on tour, and this was in
Yes.
August and September of last year.
Yeah.
And if you follow Elsy on Instagram, which I'm a hibernate from,
Don't do that.
and you've seen her stories, time aliko on tour, you know that she has been killing it absolutely.
Thank you.
And there is a video of you performing Sulwe at Phoenix Central Park.
Yes.
Ooh. Tell us, how was the tour?
The tour was amazing. Weirdly enough, Phoenix was the last show, but it felt like the beginning because Phoenix was the only show that I now curated from the beginning to the end, where it was like the lighting, the the structure, where am I standing, where am I, like we choreographed every little bit, and I think that's from Nilotic. It just made sense for me because I'm very hands on. So the first show was the Adelaide show. So that was at the lab, which is like this really awesome space. It's like LED screens around all the walls, and so the visual elements came to life, which was really amazing. But I think that just had so much pressure because it's the first show, I'm headlining, and it was just like, it was a lot, So I think I not to say that I didn't enjoy it, I enjoyed it so much, but I think I wasn't 100% present simply because you're just panicking because you're like, oh my gosh, like this is the first, this is it. But that was a really beautiful moment for me because I had my mum and cousins support me, which was the craziest thing. And then at that time, my cousin from Kenya had just come to Oz. So for me, I was just like, how good is God to like have had you arrive prior to the projects, and now you're just like opening for me. Like it was just really nice. And I got them in their walos and they did the whole cute little thing. It was really, really fun. And for me, Adelaide was the moment where I could just share it with family and friends that made Elsy who she was before the world could see it. So it was so wholesome, packed out this little venue, and it was just every face I saw, I knew, and I had a moment with everyone, which was such a blessing. Now, out of that, we started doing, I think we went to Darwin next, was it? I forget. And that was a festival, which was also really fun. But I think it starts to feel like, I don't want to say work, but I think once you're putting it out on such a big stage and it's not as intimate because there's so many people, it almost loses depth. And I think what carried it for me was my amazing band, honestly, like being able to share a stage and like look at people and dance. And there are moments we just, like it makes my heart so warm, like just seeing my friend and being like, we produced this together, do you remember? And we know the things and we're just having, and it's just a us moment. I think that's what really carried it for me in those moments. But now coming back to now Phoenix, it was such a beautiful place to, I guess, finish off because that was now the place where we had control of everything, and it was like a balloted show, so only limited amount of seats. So everyone that was there wanted to be there, and that gives off a really pure energy, and it was amazing. But the tour, all in all, was absolutely incredible. The only downside was, so that was my first tour, and I did it whilst doing like 2 other tours, which was not the healthiest thing to do, especially.
Can imagine. I can imagine.
Especially while it's like your first tour, it's like your first EP, and I was traveling, I think for like 3-4 months straight, I managed to go to every single city in Australia, I swear. Like, it was, do my tour, then come back, do the Hilltop Hoods Arena tour, then come back and I was doing a theatre show, so we were like on the road. It was just a whole thing. It was a whole thing. But I thank God that we made it through.
So whenever we do these conversations, we ask artists questions about money.
Okay.
and, and it's just basically touching on the business aspect and the business model, looking at the fact that you are with a label, MIE. And so, how does this work when it comes to you've released the project, you've sold merch, you've sold records, you're on tour? How does the business work in terms of revenue and that distribution
Right.
between you and the label, people you've worked with? How does
Yeah.
that go?
I mean, it's just like every other label that I would assume. I think it's just like everyone kind of gets their cut, right? Like at the end of the day, going back to the label MIE, like with that MIE, Nilotic couldn't have been a thing. So it's like, take your cut, like you've really done your part. So label obviously gets their cut. When we're performing, then it's like obviously like band players get their cut. There's like the publishing side of things where like radio play or TV play or whatever it is. We have like what is it called? APRA Association. What is that? It's like what do they call that? It's like a publishing like...
Collective management.
Yeah, right. There's a word
organization.
for it, but it's like an organization that now like collects royalties for artists. So they kind of just like collect that and just like ring it up to you. And there's like the master side of things. And yeah, I think everyone just like, depending on like what hand is attached to the project, whether it's like the publishing or the performance side of things, it's like everyone kind of just like gets their cut according to what they're doing.
So, speaking of tours and performances, how does it feel being you, the great you, as you've told us? We should know you, we should invest, we should
love
be your
that question.
friends.
I'm dead.
How does it feel?
I'm dead. It feels great.
To be on a lineup with the Teskey brothers.
Oh my gosh, you know the
with
Teskies?
Corey Henry.
Corey Henry's my guy.
And meeting people, Custom Z and Sampa.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I think the artist, I'm not 100% always the artist. I think even especially in this time right now, like in the hibernation mode, it's beautiful to just like walk the streets and like no one know you. And I'm not saying that people just, no one knows me. But when you live in such a small town like Adelaide, it's very hard to not be seen, even as a regular person. And yeah, it's just really nice to be here where like no one knows you, so you can almost just like do whatever. So right now I'm not the artist, only when I'm like in the studio working. But a lot of the times I just live as, I'm actually called Tish at home, so I just live as Tish. The only time I feel like someone is, when I'm in the studio and I'm doing stuff like this and, people are like, oh my gosh, it's Elsy Wameyo. Like, then I'm like, oh, wait, that's who I am. But I mean, yeah, in that respect, I think for me, I feel very honored, to be honest. It's when God like elevates you and, makes you someone in his kingdom, it's such a privilege. For me, it's honestly a moment for me to go, okay, cool, like now what do I do with this? Not, oh my gosh, okay, let me shine. Because I think the shining comes with now executing something good, So for me, it's honestly a privilege. And I'm always, every time I wake up and I just think about, okay, cool, you've been blessed with this gift, you're Elsy Wameyo, and you have power in your tongue, in your actions. Like, do good. What are we going to do? What can we do to move someone? What can we do to inspire someone? And so for me, honestly, if it's one word, I just feel very honored and very privileged to be who I am and to be able to have such influence.
So give us a brief overview of the scene in Australia. You've talked about Adelaide and how the space is. What about the entire country?
Australia is, I mean, it's interesting because it's almost different when you go into different states. So like Melbourne and Sydney are the bigger cities. So it's congested with obviously more artists. That's where all the labels are. That's where, everything happens. And I live in Adelaide, which is like the Ushago of Australia. So I tend to not be physically amidst that. And truly, it was only after Nilotic that I even got to kind of get a taste of that, because it's those publications in Sydney and in Melbourne that are now like, check this girl out, da da da. But prior to that, honestly, like I never really experienced that. I've always been covered. Ooh, is it gonna fall? We're fine. Anxiety. Yeah, no, it's almost like I've been sheltered in a really, really safe little farmland of just, a few artists here and there that make music. And it's been so wholesome, honestly. I really enjoy Adelaide. I enjoy that it's a small community, a smaller community. But the industry, I think the only thing that I would say that kind of irritates irritates me is how slow we are to catch up to, I guess, the rest of the world, or like artists like myself and other black artists, or just artists who are not the typical Australian indie sound, creating such experimental and just different. You've got, like, I don't know if you know Genesis Owusu, who is just like king of, what even genre do you put that man in? Like, he's just so great in whatever world he's in. But because some people just don't get it, so they don't show, they don't give the respect that it deserves. Like, you really have to bang on your chest and be really loud to be listened to. I think that's the only thing that I would say is kind of sucky-ish, especially as a black artist. Like, it's just that thing of working that little bit harder to be seen, which is the same everywhere. But we're slowly getting there. They're starting to listen. They're starting to put us on. People are coming out. But I think there's still more work to be done.
Yeah, and it's amazing how the project as your debut got a lot of coverage. So that is something I can notice, and I've noticed and observed. So you spoke about theatre earlier, which I was to mention. And last year, in September, you made your acting debut, your theatre debut on The Deep North, which is an African Australian musical, and you played the lead role of Jasmine Mutesa.
What is she doing, man? Damn. Damn.
What are how similar and different is the storytelling there compared to the storytelling in Nilotic?
If anything, I would say it's very similar. Do you know what's crazy as well? In terms of context, it was very similar as well. Just so Deep North being about this like black girl who's chasing this dream of becoming Beyonce from... So now I say, how I said like Adelaide is like the town of Australia. So now within South Australia, which is like Adelaide is the city of South Australia, within SA, there's now other smaller towns. So now Jasmine is a girl from one of the smaller towns in SA and wants to come to Adelaide to fulfill her musical journey. And obviously you've got people like her uncle and stuff that are like, you're going to live to paint all the rest of your life. Like, who do you think you are, type thing. And I think Nilotic was kind of in that same light of me just trying to really jump out of that. Like, I'm really showing people that I am great. Like, I can do this. Like, let me just like, be. So just in the terms of context, I think it really just like married very, very well. But in terms of like the expression, I find that it was very similar. I think what made it very similar is it was a musical. So there was a lot of song, and it would be like, this is how I feel. Let me sing to you now how I feel. So it was very, very similar. And I think I'm a very, what's the word? I'm just a character. Like, I think I was definitely made for acting. And I find it very easy to express through, because I mean, the only difference now is people see you in the flesh, whereas you're not behind a track in the studio and people are listening to a recorded version that has been mixed and mastered and perfected. And so now the difference with live being on theatre, you've got people face to face. If you mess up, baby girl, it's on you, you understand? And it's now up to you as the artist and I guess as the performer to either bring it back or, convey a certain emotion. You really have to look people in the... You're not supposed to look people in the eye, actually, apparently, I was told, but I do because that's just me. But you really have to deliver right there in that moment. And as soon as you finish the scene, that's it. That's what they've been left with. So I think the difference is now, like, you really just have to carry it from the get-go, and there's no going back, let me re-record. Like, nope, that's just how it is. But it's...
Right there, right then.
Yeah, it's the same, I think, in terms of the expression, though. Yeah. So
you've mentioned South Australia, and let's talk about awards and accolades. South Australian Music Awards, you had 6 nominations. You won 5. Best Studio Engineer and Producer. Best Music Video, Best Song, Best Solo Artist, Best Release. Then you are Triple J Unearthed which is a digital radio for discovering the best new Australian music, artist of the year. How do you feel about all of this?
I feel great. No, it's so beautiful to be recognized. Let me tell you, when you spend so much time on something and you really like spent time, because you know how like people can just be like, okay, like let me quickly do this, da, 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 and then like send it out. I think once you've really poured your heart into something, when someone recognizes that, there's a feeling that really can't compare to anything. Just like I feel like it's like I've been seen, you know, like I've been heard, and I love that people were just resonating, and that it kind of just got the rewards and the appreciation that it needed. Yeah, honestly, it makes me happy. It just makes me happy.
What is Nilotic's legacy?
Ooh, you tell me.
It's your project, it's your body of work. I'm just a consumer.
We'll leave that unto the gods. We'll leave it unto the gods.
So as of now, what does home mean to Elsy? Therapy session. We are unearthing.
Come back to me in like 5 years maybe, and you can ask me that question. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. And it's been really interesting because it's like, if you asked me that when I was in the production of this, I'm sure I would have given you an answer. But I think it's ever changing because we're all growing and we're all evolving, and you lose friends, you lose family, and you lose, you know, like imagine you've put your hope in someone and then they're no longer in the picture for whatever reason. So then you almost lose that, you know, that feeling of if it's home or whatever it is. So I think it becomes very complicated, especially now being an expat, having been born in one country, living in another, and not just being in between the seas. There's so many variables that I think have played in my life that have really challenged my perception on what home is. So I struggle. I think for me, I always go back to just, I am a child of God. He's the only one that is going to take me for who I am. And I'm just waiting to return back home in heaven.
So to revisit in 5 years, you said?
Maybe.
I'll
probably give you the same answer.
Okay.
Find me at like the pinnacle of like an album when I've like figured it out. I don't think anyone ever figured. I mean, okay, what's home to you?
I am the one interviewing you, Elsy.
Damn, I just want to know.
So as we are concluding and before tuongele recording, would you tell people briefly about the conversation that planted the seed in Nilotic?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Okay, guys, so listen, yeah. So can I give you like even the backstory to how we got this? So I was in Kenya, I think 2019, and just found out that Fancy Fingers from Sati Soul was following me on Instagram. And I was like, who is this guy? Whatever. And then I saw this beautiful video of him, and I think it was him and who? Was it Okello? Him and someone else. They were playing Lucy, I hate it, like the Ohangla version of Lucy. And I was like, wow, like this is amazing. Anyway, I remember just like messaging him randomly and going, because he eats really well, he works out. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I wish one day I could like be as healthy as you. I was just saying that for vibes. I didn't mean that. I was really just starting conversations. So anyway, forward to now COVID, I'm back in Australia, and he had started these like workout sessions on Zoom. And then he messages me. He was like, oh, I remembered that you said you wanted to work out. Like we're doing, and I was like, I didn't, the Elsy in me can't be like, oh, I was just joking, because, embarrassing. So I was like, cool, like I'll join. So I ended up joining. So now we're working out on Zoom. Amazing, changed my life. If it wasn't for those workouts, this thing would have never happened, right? So anyway, so now we're working out on Zoom. My mum always used to watch me in the kitchen as I worked out in the backyard. And I remember this one day, I was just like, oh, like she should join. So anyway, my mum joins, you know, one of the sessions, and she meets Polycarp Fancy Fingers, and they realize that they're from like the same place, and it's like, oh, like you speak Luo, and it was this beautiful interaction. And then at that time, because Fancy didn't really know who I was, like where I'm from and everything like that. So then I think in that conversation, Fancy was like, oh, so you're a Nilot. And that was the first time I heard the word Nilot for a long time, honestly. And I don't even think I recall hearing that word ever, unless I just never deeped it. But that was the first time I heard the word Nilot. And I was like, yeah, like, you're right. Like, I'm a Nilot. And I remember just that workout session, like, I was just pumping through. Yo, you should have seen me. I hate push-ups. I was pushing, girl. I was just pushing. So I think I just found strength in what he had said, like me being a Nilot. And I remember straight after that workout session, I went to the computer and I just researched. And I was like, who are the Nilots? You've got the Barack Obamas, you've got the Lupita Nyong'os, you've got the Tomboyas. Like, there are so many greats, you know. And then now the artists were like the Octopizzo, the Calligraphs, the Fancies. There are so many great people. And I was like, wow, like, we really be doing stuff, you know what I'm saying? But then I also ran across, like, articles I remember, now this is the rapping side of things. I ran across this article that was saying Luo people can rap really well because our language is super, like, hard, and there's really intricate, like, not rhythms, but like intonations, I guess. And so because of that, it allows us to just like say things. We could like rap really nice and like rap really fast. And that's the only reason in River Nile I go, so you bet I'm going to get it, I'll get it, I'll get it when I'm getting it, because I was like, I can do it. Let me just like say a bunch of random stuff. But yeah, honestly, that's how Nilotic was birthed, because Fancy Fingers had a conversation with my mum and was like, oh my gosh, Elsy's a Nilot. And I was like, yes, I am. And then we have the project. So I should pay him. Like, no, I won't. God will bless you.
So, speaking of Fancy Fingers, fun fact, I
Bless
went
him.
to primary school with him.
Shut up. Shut up.
The day we met, during the BBC live recording at
Yeah.
KNT, I told him that. He was very surprised.
Shut up.
He was very surprised.
That's crazy.
Very, very surprised. So, Fancy Fingers, if you're watching, asante sana for being here. So,
Fancy's-
whom have you been recording with?
I can't tell you that.
Oh, yeah?
Sorry.
I was
Well,
trying to
I would
get
say
you on.
Fancy, because Fancy's already here.
It's,
Of course it's going to be Fancy, right?
So the rest need surprises.
I can't tell you the
and,
rest. But Fancy has changed my life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I love that man. He's now, like, should have invested first time. Like, he's invested. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I love him because he works with one heart. You know, there are people that will help you because they know that it's like, the chat we were saying about like I'm gonna be excited for your blessing because I know that mine's coming next. But then there are some people that it's like they're excited for the wrong reason. It's like, I'm excited because I'm gonna help you because I know that I'm gonna be like, oh, I helped you one day. Like, I'm gonna brag about helping you. Do you understand? But then there are people that will help you because it's like, no, I just want to help you. Whatever comes out of it, yes, great. I'd love to receive the blessing, but I just want to help you. And I think Fancy is one of those people that just, like, he just loves and he helps simply because because he wants to, not because he wants something out of it. But he has honestly changed my life. Fancy Fingers, Polycarp, I love you so much.
So you being hands-on and self-critical about your projects, how has that played out in the sessions you've been in?
Oh my gosh, I feel like this is the question for the next interview, but all I'm going to say right now is that I'm a better person. I am a better person. I was having this conversation with a friend of mine actually before I came here, and we were talking about how we're both we never let our guards down in every aspect of our life. And there's so much beauty in letting your guards down, people, there is. But I also know that there's beauty in being very specific and very particular in who you are and in your creative world and da-da-da-da. But I have been tested. I've been tested. But God has blessed me with people who are very fluid and who are very understanding. And honestly, yeah, we have to do a whole nother interview for that. But it's
When
it's
the
been a
project
journey.
comes out.
Yeah, because that's another journey.
I'm
That's
sure.
like the
I'm
next
sure it is.
season.
Definitely.
But
Definitely.
I've grown. I've definitely grown, and I'm very proud of myself. That's one thing I'll say. I'm very proud of myself.
You've had it here first. We'll have an interview with Elsy when the project comes out.
Yes,
What
sir.
next for you? And if you have anything else to say, feel free to say it.
Honestly, I'm honestly just excited for the next project. I'm really excited to share the music because I think I'm a bag full of surprises. No one ever really knows what's coming next because I never know what's coming next. But I'm really excited, one, because I've collaborated, and that's something that I never would have thought I was going to do, especially on the next project. But two, also because it's going back to God, and it's always been God, and how I got to God is so interesting, and I'm really excited to share that journey now. But yeah, honestly, I'm just really excited for the next project. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned for that. Anything else regarding the project, regarding anything?
Go and get this album.
Oh, for sure.
Just go get a vinyl. Do you know what it is? Oh my gosh, is this open?
Yes, it is. It is.
If it's anything, I want... If you ever get this... Don't even listen to the music. Forget the music. Just read this. Yeah. Honestly, if you could read this text, I don't even care if you listen to the music. I couldn't care less. Just read what I've written here. This is all I care about. And how sick is that photo? Big up to Leon Tran, photographer that did this shot. But yeah, if it's anything about this EP, I just want you to read this text.
The journey of a Nilotic. Have you ever had any interview here?
Never. This is my first time. In Kenya, this is my first time. I've done everything like virtually. This is my first time doing an interview in Kenya. Thank you for investing.
Sanaa siwaambia Elsy, I am so grateful for this. That we have had this sit down in this conversation. You've shared a lot of insights, and thank you for sharing your story with us and for gracing our platform.
Thank you so much.
Listen to the EP, stream it, buy it on Bandcamp, buy the vinyl, do whatever you'll do, get the merchandise, do all of those good things. This has been the Nilotic experience.
Forever lives on. It will never die. That's the legacy.
Finally.
It's never going to die. This is the foundation of who I am. Like, everything else is going to stand on this. But this is so solid. It's like, I'm not even mad. Like, this will never crumble.
Very solid.
That's the legacy. But please go and buy it. Please go and read. I know you don't read. Let that be the only thing you read in this lifetime. People don't read these days, you know.
Utaanza interview ingine sasa hapa tuanze kuangalia books.
Bye.
Shukran to Cheche Bookshop and Cafe for giving us the space to have this amazing conversation.
Love ya. Bye.